Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another weekly edition of the show live on YouTube, obviously podcast form, on all podcast distributors, also live on Twitch and Twitter. Hit the like button for the show, all that fun stuff. And it's not going to be a long show because we don't have a lot of news to get to. We do have, obviously, the fights to get to this weekend and to break them down, so that might take up a lot of time. We might actually give more time to break down the fights because of the lack of news. And Gary's not going to be here for the whole week. So next MCR show will be next week. So this is it for the whole week. So enjoy it. And obviously we enjoyed this weekend. Roman Gonzalez, Juan Francisco Estrada. That was a just amazing fight. It just was. Like, it was one of the better fights I've seen in a few years, to be quite honest. It's probably going to be fight of the year when it comes down to December. And it has its own little controversy with the scorecards, of course. A lot to get into on today's show. So without further ado, let me get to my co-host, the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
It's good to be back. And before we get up, we have to break
Oh, wow. Gary just froze
down
up.
next week's Golden Boy card. Are you serious?
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit. Refresh, Gary. Refresh. Are you?
Yeah, I'll refresh. I am.
There you go. Just refresh. Okay, Gary. We can do it really fast. Remember, guys, patreon.com/Trending Now Network. Cash App, Trending Now Network, if you want to support the channel in any financial way. But, of course, all content is free, especially during a fucking global pandemic and recession. Gary's back, though. Gary, how are you?
I'm good. And we got to get into next week's card before I leave, because that's my two boys, Virgil and...
Is that next week already? Oh, my God.
I don't even know who to root for in that fight. I don't even know what to do. I mean, I know who I think is going to win, but I don't even know who to root for in that fight.
Yes, you do. Ortiz versus Hooker next week, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You know who to root for. Stop it. The guy that you've been saying is the future of the money-weight division that can fight Errol Spence right now. You are absolutely rooting for Virgil.
But Hooker's it's like rooting between my children. Like, I know Hooker well. Like, that's my guy. I love Maurice Hooker. I mean, well, we'll get into that later. It's like your two children are fighting. It's like when the Harbaughs played each other in the Super Bowl. It's like, who do you root for?
It's an easy, prediction, though, right?
I think so.
Okay. As long as we're on that same page. I understand, not being able to root for either one, because since you're, you know them personally, I get that completely. But it's a pretty easy prediction. We're gonna get to
I don't think we'll get into it. I don't think it says, but we'll get into it.
Don't worry, Gary. We're getting to it. That's later on the show. Let's start obviously on a somber note. We have to, in honor of the marvelous one, Marvin Hagler, who passed away. His wife posted that he passed away suddenly at their home at the age of, was it 66, right?
Yeah.
Extremely young in today's age, if we're being quite honest. So rest in peace to the marvelous one, man. Gary, obviously you lived more during that era, or you were a kid during that era, right? Or at least the tail end of it, I should say.
Yeah.
What can you speak of it? Because I obviously after that era completely, I didn't live it. So you lived it. What was it like?
Hagler was a crossover. So no matter if you were a boxing casual or a boxing hardcore, Hagler was was your favorite fighter to watch, right? Whether you were a Leonard fan or a Hearns fan, right? You at least love watching Hagler, right? He was relentless. I lived in New York City for 10 years. I compared it to fighting Marvin Hagler every day of your life, right? People get the analogy. It's just relentless. It doesn't stop. It keeps coming at you, right? That's what Hagler was just relentless in the ring. And then the training montage, the real life one, not the Rocky one, the real life montage of Marvin Hagler running in snow in Massachusetts in Timberland, screaming war, right? It's just classic. I mean, it's so sad that guy is gone. And Hagler walked away at the right time. And years later, when Leonard came back and lost to Hector Camacho, he said Leonard said he still had unfinished business with Hagler. And Hagler said, "Get a life. We're both in our mid-40s. Go do something. Go do something productive." Right? I love Hagler. Hagler was the epitome of a fighter. He had remember Hagler had draws early in his career, right? And he came basically from nowhere, right? Like Brockton, Massachusetts. He fought club scenes until like he built up this incredible record, and then like he became, I think, the greatest middleweight of all time, at least that I've seen in my lifetime. But I mean, I don't care what era you're from. He's a top 3 middleweight ever.
Yeah, I mean, he's in. For most people, I feel like he is the number 1 middleweight in the world of all time. Other people in the running would probably be like Carlos Monzon, like the hipsters that were born after 2000 is Triple G, but like that's just not.
Yeah, I mean, you know what he does to Triple G? I mean, Triple G could that'd be a fun fight because they could both take a beating.
Like Sugar Ray Robinson might be in that mix too for like best middleweights of all time. To be quite honest, if Canelo stayed at middleweight, maybe it'd be Canelo could put his name in that ring, but he's clearly not at middleweight anymore. It's Hagler. Like it has to be Hagler, and only that. Like even if some people you might argue like better wins or whatever, Hagler is clearly the best like fighter that's ever been at middleweight. Like he was the complete package. He had everything. Watching his fights growing up, on YouTube and things like that. My dad showing me his fights because my dad was a big Hagler and Duran fan. It was just quite iconic, even as a kid growing up after the fact, of course. But, we have to move on, of course. And it's only right that we move on to an absolute amazing fight that happened on the same day of the passing of the Marvelous One. Juan Francisco Estrada and Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez was an epic rematch 8 years after the fact. It was one of those fights that had ebbs and flows. It had stories within rounds, stories within the fight. And obviously the story after the fight is the controversial decision, which I think we can get into in a second. But Gary, I mean, your thoughts on the fight itself? I mean, were you entertained?
No, I thought it was boring. Did you like it? It was a great fight. I mean, it was just as good, maybe better than the first one. I went back and watched the first one, so I reminded myself how good the first one was. The first one was great too, but this was at least just as good as the first one. This was a great fight. It was all action, well over 2,000 punches again. I think both guys had stretches of where they were doing what they wanted to do. And I said that we were going to get to a decision, and it was going to be really close. It was going to be somewhat controversial. I don't like to use the word robbery, but I think we know who won that fight, and it wasn't right. No disrespect to Estrada. I don't want to taint it, but I feel like that decision, especially that scorecard, just like in the Leonard Hagler fight, that one scorecard is so bad, it kind of taints it, right? But I don't want to ruin it. It was a great night. Boxing Twitter sphere was going off, so I think more people than may have expected to watch that fight because it is 115 pounders. Watch the fight. Obviously, they enjoyed themselves. I don't know anyone who watched the fight who wasn't thoroughly enthralled in the fight. Like, that was a great fight. That is 2 Hall of Famers fighting for legacy, right? It was a fight that Marvin Hagler would have loved.
Absolutely. Gary, by the way, can you turn off your AC?
Is that making that sound again? Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. As he's coming back and getting that, I'll say this. I'm not going to go as far in saying that the controversial decision, which I did not agree with, we'll get into scorecards, I bet, in a second. I did not have that same scorecard. I had quite the opposite, especially of the 117, 111 scorecard by Carlos Sakura. That is just ridiculous, in my opinion. Like, I'm glad that WBA is suspending him and looking into how bad that scorecard is, because it was just trash. But I'm not going to go as far as Gary saying that it taints the fight per se, because the fight is so fantastic. There's such a obvious open door to a trilogy fight. So I'm not as concerned or as upset with this bad decision, even though it is clearly a very bad decision, because I know we're getting the trilogy fight the summertime, most likely. If I had to guess, maybe the fall we get this trilogy fight. And I'm betting that Roman Gonzalez wins that probably more definitively, because he starts in the first round instead of not starting in the first round, because he didn't start working until the second round. And even then, I would argue that he really didn't pick up rhythm and momentum until like the 4th or 5th round. But Gary, I know you think that the decision tainted it. What was your scorecard? if you had it hand.
8-4. I had it 116, 112 for Chocolatito. Look, there were close rounds. I'm going to say the same thing I said about the Anthony Durrell fight with Davis like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to find 6 rounds that you could score for, I mean, you can't get 9. That's ridiculous, okay? But if you wanted to score to draw and you really wanted to get to 6-6, you could probably make an argument that Estrada won 6 rounds. But at that point, you're looking to score rounds for Estrada. And you shouldn't be looking to score rounds for anyone. Like, you can't tell me, just objectively looking at that fight, that you thought Estrada won the fight, that he won 7 rounds, much less 9. Like, that's a hard argument to make. Like, you're looking to give rounds to him. And why would you be looking to just score the fight? And I think if you score the fight, Chocolatito wins. Estrada, the corner was saying he was losing, right? I don't think that was just bluster because they were saying in the 10th round, like, look, you're losing these rounds.
Yeah.
It didn't change much. I thought Estrada got off to a pretty good start. I think I gave Estrada the 12th. I gotta look. I have my scorecard over here.
I did not, but that was a very close round.
But at that point, the fight was already over on my card. Like, I think I gave Estrada 12. I gotta look at that. But I mean, and that sounds to stop now. I gotta figure out how to stop that. But
it's good now. It's good.
It's good now. I know because whatever.
Shout out to your kid. Once they get access to the AC unit, man, you're fucked.
The good thing is he said it at 50, right? So like once it goes down to 62, you start looking at like why? Because I'm just immune to that's black. That's like white noise to me now. Like I just like once you point it out, I can hear it, but like it can run all day and I don't hear it. I feel it when it's 61 degrees in the house. I'm like, oh, I know why it's freezing. Just turn it off and it goes back up. Where was I? The decision.
Yeah.
Like they were close rounds. Estrada did the better work, landed cleaner shots in more of the rounds, unless he should have won the fight. And it's no disrespect to Estrada. I think regardless of who wins, there was a good chance we were going to get the trilogy because of how good that fight was again. Again, I'm gonna stop short of calling it a robbery because you can find the rounds if you really wanted to make an argument, but you shouldn't be trying. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, man. Like, hey, anyone in the chat, we have 16 people watching. Like, did anyone score this for Estrada? And I'll be honest, Gary, when I texted in the group chat that they robbed my boy, and you said no way, I thought you were arguing with me. I was about to get really heated. Oh my God, I was like in nuclear mode at that time, man. I was really hot last night about this matchup or the decision. I've cooled down since the fact.
Michael Cameron, who is the manager of Vaughn Alexander, scored a draw. That's the only hand. That's
okay. So
I've not seen anyone score for Estrada. I've seen one guy who I respect who scored a draw.
The rounds that I gave to Estrada were the first round, the third round, the 6th round, the 7th round, and that's it. You could argue you can give him the 12th round, and then I saw somebody else in our Twitter group chat said they gave him, I think, the 11th or the 10th. I think it was the 11th that they said. I could be wrong about which number they said. So let's say you give him those 2 rounds too. It's a draw. Like, I cannot find that extra round to give Estrada because he was simply outworked. I don't mean that in the like casual sense, like, oh, like this guy was just doing more. He looked like he was doing more, so therefore I give him the round. Like, you know, the Harold Letterman way of scoring it. Like, that's not what happened here. Roman Gonzalez was landing combinations at will in a lot of these rounds and was hurting Estrada in a lot of these rounds as well. And I would argue that he hurt Estrada far more than Estrada ever hurt Gonzalez in this fight, even though Estrada got off some really good shots. And clearly Estrada was the faster puncher here.
So I just pulled up my scorecard. I didn't give him the 12th. I gave him the 11th to Estrada. I gave him the 12th. Okay. Give me me and Matt did not talk about this. And you can go look at my scorecard. It's on Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to tell you the rounds that I scored for Estrada. 1, 3, 7, and 11.
Yeah. I gave him the 6. You didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't, and I didn't give him the 11th. But even if like we gave him all the rounds that like cumulative that we gave him, he still only gets a draw.
You can't get to 7. Right? I said if you really want to stretch and you really want to make an argument, you can get to 6. You can't really get to 7. So that means 2 of the scorecards. 1 is egregiously bad.
Yeah.
1 is still pretty bad. And the only one who got it right was the guy from Texas. I know we're going to make a big deal because Texas has a history of handing out, and I'm the first one to admit it, right? I'm the first one to admit that there are horrible decisions that come out of Texas. There was one judge from Texas, and he was the only one who scored it for Chocolatito. The guy that scored it 9-3 was from Florida, and the other guy that scored 7-5 for Chocolatito was from Oklahoma.
Dude, I'm so glad this is like low-key turning into you shading Florida and Oklahoma, because like you always shit on Oklahoma and low-key Florida too. Oh my god, the inner South feud on this show. I love it, Gary. I love it. But to be honest, like all three of those states have notoriously awful commissions. All of them do, right? Like Oklahoma has an atrocious one. Florida has one that's arguably worse than Texas.
Oklahoma didn't really have any fights until they built those casinos on the Native American land, and then they started having fights. And it's like, well, we don't really know what to do, because it was like when Atlanta had the big Tank Davis. I was like, we have club fight that no one pays attention to. I don't. Now we're on a national scale, and everyone's noticing that we're incompetent, right? I don't blame Oklahoma because they're incompetent because they never had any of this. Florida has fights; they're just terrible at it.
Shout out to Florida, man. Terrible at a lot of things, man. Love you people down there. I'm
going to Florida this week, by the way.
Yeah, that's the best part too. Gary, do you assume that this rematch is going to happen? The trilogy fight, it's instantaneous, or do you think
it's got it? I know still Rungvisai is the mandatory, but the WBA already already suspended the judge, so they're gonna mandate they do this again, right? Like the WBA is gonna mandate this, and WBC will fall in line. I would yes, I watch boxing, so I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I'm certainly thinking that this is gonna happen again 6 months from now.
It is the low weight classes. I mean, we are more likely to get these types of fights than if this was at 147 or heavyweight, anything involving Canelo.
Tyson Fury disappears.
Dude, he's obviously in Dubai, just like doing all the drugs with Kinahan. Let's be honest here.
And Joseph Parker.
Dude,
Joseph Parker's done nothing wrong.
Dude, I forgot to put that fucking story on the board. Oh my god. We gotta get to that. Remind me, Gary, after we get to like fights and everything, to come back to that fucking Joseph Parker story, because it is just hilarious. I do not know what to like think of it, because I've not read a single article. I've just seen the headlines, to be honest, people. So I'm purely making judgment calls off of the headlines, and it's just hilarious. And the pictures Twitter have been posting saying that it's proof now that he's been on meth. It just people are so mean. Anyways. Any other thoughts on Estrada Gonzalez? I mean, thoughts on Gonzalez at this stage in his career? Like, do you think he still has it? How long does he have it? Or any concern about that? I knew I had a lot of concern going into this fight about his durability. And clearly, he was durable enough for this fight. But holy hell, man. Like, it was 2,000 plus punches thrown between them. I mean, how many more does he have here, Gary, in your opinion?
And that's always the question, right? Like that's always, I mean, he didn't look aged. He's 34, which is older for the smaller weight classes. I thought he wasn't aged. I think Rungvisai, who we'll get into, looks more aged, even though I thought Rungvisai looked good. I can see more decline in Rungvisai. He doesn't move his head at all anymore. I think, look, offensively, Rungvisai, we'll get into Rungvisai later, and I have lots of thoughts on him. I think there's plenty left in Chocolatito. Now that could change. We could get into the ring 6 months from now, and he looks 10 years older. But based on what I saw, I haven't saw any decline. But it's always at that age something to keep an eye on.
Is he like the uncrowned king now of super flyweight again?
I want to say he is, but he lost, right? Like,
but I mean, no one in the chat.
No one thinks he lost. I get it.
Like, no one thought he lost. Like, I haven't seen one person thought that he legitimately lost that fight.
I know one person who called it a draw. That's it. Everyone else scored it for.
Dude, if you're Roman fucking Gonzalez and you came after those two fights with Storbrungs VI, first off, the war of a decade in the first fight, and then the brutal knockout in the second fight, and then to have the comeback that he's had, even to have a draw with Estrada is insane. No, like, honestly speaking, like, he's 34 years old. This doesn't happen. He is truly a once in a lifetime talent. And you in the chat saying Ioka is the king. I know definitely Heath Farley is going to agree with you in the chat. I don't think Ioka is truly the king. Sorry, beating Tanaka, while a great win, is not the same as beating Rungsvi like Estrada did, and he did against Roman Gonzalez in a rematch. It's not the same. Gary, any thoughts?
My closest thought is it to me, like Chocolatito should be the king of 115.
Yeah.
And this kind of tainted because he didn't get the decision. If he would have gotten a draw, you would say, well, he got a draw, but we all know he won. Like Whitaker and Chavez. Like there was no question who was the king at that point. He got the loss. He took the L. Like when Holyfield and Lewis fought the first fight, and it was a draw. It's like hell in a draw. This is bogus. It was like when De La Hoya got robbed against Trinidad. Well, I guess Trinidad's the king of welterweight division. It's even though everyone thought De La Hoya won. I mean, to me, I would favor Chocolatito in the next fight. But like, can you dethrone Estrada for getting a decision? I mean, I don't think he deserved the decision. I thought it was bogus, but he got the decision.
Yeah. I'll say it. This was a robbery. I'll fucking say it.
It's close to a robbery. Again, if it was a draw, would you say it was a robbery?
No, but it wasn't a draw.
Draw isn't a draw, yeah.
It wasn't. It was a loss. Like, you know what I mean? Like in a hypothetical world, if it was a draw, it wouldn't sting as much. Absolutely the case. Because like we came to an agreement that we can find 6 rounds to give to Estrada. So like, let's say in like that thought experiment, like we had the draw, we're coming here on this show, our narrative would be different. It'd be like, hey, look, we can find a draw. You know, it's not what we agree, but we can find it. Right? We cannot find 7 rounds for Estrada. Well, think about it. We can't find 7. Usually in these types of situations, I'm the first one to go, hey, I can find 7 rounds for this guy. You know me, Gary. Yeah. I'm usually that guy to always stay away from that term, that word, that dreaded word in this sport. But to me, it fits. Because I don't see anyone picking Estrada to win. The closest was a draw, but that's not what happened. And
yeah, I haven't seen anyone score straight out for Estrada. I saw another on my timeline. Someone else said they scored a draw. So I've got Tino in San Antonio and Mike Cameron.
William Phillips, first one in the chat to admit it. Shout out to you, William. You're brave. I had Estrada winning. William, if you can you give me the rounds that you had for Estrada? I am curious. And I'm not going to attack you, of course, William. You're a long-time listener, but like I just don't see it. Like I think you're giving so much to Estrada's speed and discounting all of the combination work of Gonzalez, because Gonzalez was landing a lot of right hands, a lot of uppercuts. His body work was nice, and he clearly was making Estrada have to adjust to him. Like after like the 3rd or 4th round, it was Gonzalez controlling the tempo and sort of the real estate of the fight, and Estrada having to adjust to that over and over and over again within the pocket, within the round, within rounds. He had to adjust to that. That to me is always an indicator of who is losing.
So we're saying the rounds that you could argue Estrada won were 1, 3, 6, 7, 11, 12. If you gave him all those rounds, you can get to a draw. 6,
right.
6.
Let's do the math right just to make sure. 1, 3, and then 6, 7, 11, and 12. Yes, that's 6.
You got to give every single one of those rounds to get.
And then one more, William.
To get to one more to get to, but just to get to a draw, you got to give him every single close round. Yeah. And then to get him a win, you got to give every single close round plus one he lost. And to get to 9-3, you have to not watch the fight.
Let's be honest. His best round was the first round.
Yeah.
And it was only because Roman Gonzalez did not throw like a single punch the entire round, which is insane because they got to 2,000 plus. And Roman Gonzalez did not throw like a single punch the entire first round.
Yeah, after that first round, I said, "Uh-oh, Chocolatito might have gotten old now."
I got really worried, man. And plus, like Estrada, to his credit, like I know we've been kind of hating on him here in the show, but like he was the faster opponent there. It did seem like his shots, like shot for shot, were the more powerful punches. I'll say that. And he clearly was like the bigger fighter. He was clearly more in his prime. He was the better athlete. But fucking Gonzalez is that wily veteran, man. Like he is that style that he's just an avalanche. You cannot stop that. You can try to fight it, you can try to outrun it, try to dodge it, try to hide from it, but sooner or later he's going to keep hitting you. And Estrada has never been the best when it comes to dealing with pressure. That has always been sort of his Achilles heel, that if you pressure him enough, his fallback game isn't good enough. He likes being in that mid-range. He likes being at long range. He likes dictating things if he's pressing forward. But if he's the one having to adjust, if he's the one getting pressed, he does falter at times. Like Rungsvi did that very well in the first fight with Estrada. But digressing. Final thought on this tinfoil hat theory. They robbed my boy Roman Gonzalez because he's a proud Sandinista and he wore that Daniel Ortega shirt. And they're like, nah, we can't give it to this guy. We can't give it to the communist. So that's what happened. Guaranteed. Gary has no idea who Daniel Ortega is.
I'm guessing he's from Nicaragua.
Yeah, he's the president right now.
Okay.
And he was the president back in the day as well when the Sandinistas first took over.
That's in the 80s?
Yes.
See, I know something.
There you go.
I know that Nicaragua has had as many American invasions as a Middle East country. Yeah. I know that. I know when they started the caravan here, I was like, oh, you messed up my house for decades. I want to come to your house.
Yeah, he was sporting the Sandinista flag on his shorts too, the red and black flag. Shout out to Roman Gonzalez, man. Proud comrade there. But digressing, I cannot wait for the trilogy fight. And just to actual final thoughts here, I don't think Roman Gonzalez has long for the sport, in my opinion. I think he has maybe 3 big fights left.
Well, 3 fights is good, right? Because that's a rematch, the trilogy, the Rungsvi fight, and then Ioka?
Inoue? Please. Dude, Gonzalez can lose those next 2 fights. I don't care. I still want him to fight Inoue. We cannot have these guys retire and never fight each other. We just can't. It'd be blasphemous. It'd be like saying like, oh, we just can't have, Crawford and Spence anytime ever. Like, could you accept that? No, I couldn't. And sorry, Heath. Ioka, he's like 3rd on that list in terms of like who I want Gonzalez to face next. Like, I want some rematches right now.
So on air, when we're done, you can tell me why the U.S. has so much interest in Nicaragua going back to 30, 40 years. Yeah. It's like, it just seems like, I don't want to call it a country, but like it's like how much economic interest can you have in Nicaragua? You know what I'm saying? It's a tiny little country. But we'll talk about that off air.
It actually goes farther back than that too. It's for like, the turn of the century, like Teddy Roosevelt era, like, the making the Panama Canal.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the overall control of the banana republics in Central America. So it's been a long running thing. But yeah, we can talk about that off air, of course. Anyways, let's get to the co-main event. Hiroto Kawaguchi versus Axel Vega, which was such a fun fight until the broken hand. Like, it was, and honestly, like, Kawaguchi like had really good success, I think, in the first 2 or 3 rounds, but Vega was coming on strong. He was clearly like going for broke, man. Like, he knew like this was my time. Like, this is the fight I'm going to take. Like, there's no chance I'm going to have a fight like this again, especially with a up and coming superstar like Kawaguchi. And then he broke his hand, and I want to say that he broke it early in the fight too, because there was one uppercut I want to say he landed in like the 2nd round, and he like shook his hand out. You can see him like literally shook his arm out, and I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look good." Like I've hurt my hand in sparring, so like I've done that. Like I know that move, and then obviously he hurt it even more, and I heard that the handbrake was severe, so he's gonna have massive surgery, and I hope he got paid well in this fight. I hope that he's getting taken care of, because handbrakes are the death nail for boxers a lot of time. Gary, your thoughts on the co-main event here? Or sorry, I shouldn't say the co-main event. The
undercard.
Sorry. Box Rec is the co-main event, so I'm just going down Box Rec. My apologies.
That was a great fight, and it looked like there was, I mean, that would be called an upset, right? I mean, I know neither fighter had huge, we didn't know a ton about either fighter, but there was certainly an A side of a guy who was supposed to showcase in that fight, right?
Yes, there was.
And that was a highly entertaining scrap. And it was just starting to unfold, and then the handbrake. Again, that he could be out a year more with a hand injury, because there's nothing you could really, depending on what, I mean, there's like half your bones are in your hand. There's so many little tiny bones in your hand, depending on how many he broke. But as soon as they took the glove and the wraps off, it was like, someone had implanted a softball in his hand. Like, I don't know if you saw the hand, but it was That was a gruesome. Like you can see that was, I think, was immediately broken. Now maybe it's an easy fix, or maybe it's just bones. That the only thing you can really do for it is wrap it up and let it heal for a year, which means he's going to be out of the ring for at least a year. I don't know, but that was a great fight that was just starting to unfold.
Absolutely. The real co-main event, I apologize, and disrespect
great
fight. I mean, honestly, this whole card was really fun. Like, we're gonna get to like the Emma Williams, like Mama's Boy fight. Like, I cannot wait. We might talk more about that than any other fight because I have so many takes about that. And Rob was hating on it in the group chat. Fucking hater Rob defending Anthony Fowler. But the co-main event, Jessica McCaskill defending her undisputed championship against Cecilia Brækhus in a rematch. And honestly, like, she beat the brakes off of Brækhus for the first like 6 rounds or so, tired out a little bit, and then Brækhus came on late. But McCaskill really like beat up Brækhus. Like, she dog walked her for like a good half of this fight at least. Like, that right hand was just money. Like, it was landing at will over the jab of Brækhus over and over and over again. I was really impressed by McCaskill. It was a far better performance in this fight than the first one, in my opinion.
And I agree with everything you said. Here's my take on it is that Brækhus isn't done. That's just her kryptonite. Like, she still looked good to me. She just, like, it was like Joe Frazier. Like, she was just short and coming forward and unorthodox, and she was getting hit with shots. Like, I don't get hit with shots like this. What's going on here? Like, Ken Norton, right? Like, Ken Norton's not better than Ali. I beat him 3 times, right? It's just, stylistically, I think McCaskill's really good, but she's just a nightmare, and she'll beat him, or, she'll beat it every time, just because stylistically, Brækhus doesn't know how to respond to that. Like, it was like Ali really didn't know how to respond to Ken Norton. I thought Ali's not better than Ken Norton. It's like, stylistically, this is not good for me. I was shocked. And I know the scorecards were wide. They were probably a little wide, but I don't think 8-2 was wrong. I think I think it was a kind of like an easy fight to score. I give the first 6 rounds to McCaskill, and then I thought maybe she won the last 2, right? Like, I thought 8-2, 8-2 or 7-3 was the score. I think there was a shutout. That's probably wrong, right? But like, McCaskill won wide. Like, McCaskill beat her down.
Shout out to John in the chat, who's in the studio making his new album. Everyone go support him on all streaming platforms as well. All DSPs, as they're called. Anyways, yes, Jessica McCaskill looked fantastic. And I am so excited for that Katie Taylor rematch, because that's going to happen next, right? And it has to. And honestly, she might beat fucking Katie Taylor.
She's going to beat Katie Taylor. I know Katie Taylor beat her, but like, you can't tell me McCaskill hasn't improved since then, right? Like,
dude, Rob somewhere listening to the show, just like pulling out what little hair he has left, and it's hilarious. I love it. I think it's a tough fight for Katie Taylor, because Katie Taylor struggles with pressure. She struggles with big punchers. And McCaskill looks really good at this weight. Like, that's clearly a case too. Like, she has filled out properly enough in terms of her power and her size and just her raw frame to land those power shots and have some effect, because she was hurting Brækhus. Like, no one's really hurt her like that before. And Katie Taylor, again, I think that she is someone that can get countered. She gets in that mode where she's just throwing a lot of straight shots. I think I can see McCaskill landing that right hand over the top. Like, it's not that hard. But I do want to see that, because that's that's the direct line to a Shields Taylor fight happening, right? Is if Taylor beats McCaskill in a rematch at this weight, cleans up all the belts. That fight is a mega fight.
It is. Okay. And like, first off, Clarissa Shields is too big for her, and Clarissa Shields is too good for her. Like,
we know that, but it's a money fight. It doesn't matter.
It's so good, right? Like, she'll get $1 million payday, which is good. But
and it's a legacy fight, Gary. Like, I know you're discounting it, but like, let's say like she beat, like, let's say my thought experiment here happens, right? And she goes on, beats Katie Taylor after Katie Taylor collects all these belts, and even you thinking that she's going to lose some McCaskill, I think you should give her some credit. Let's say like she wins the fight and actually like convincingly wins it. It's a bigger legacy fight than anything Shields has had before, and probably anything she'll have after in boxing. Like, that's just the reality. Like, Christina Hammer is not the bigger legacy fight than Katie Taylor if they end up fighting.
I mean, the only thing is Clarissa Shields still like 25. Like, we don't realize how young she is. She could do this for another 10, 12 years, right? Like, McCaskill's 36. That means she's 11 years older than Shields, right? So we don't know there could be a 18-year-old girl right now who 5 years from now is going to be the new Clarissa Shields, and that's the legacy fight, right? But like right now, right, you look at it, and that's the legacy fight for Clarissa Shields.
Yeah, it has to be. That's just the nature of how women's boxing has been undercut by the industry. This is what they have right now at this time for a talent like Clarissa Shields. Got to make do with it what you can. Scott Brown saying Shields was going to PFL. She's doing both. She said numerous times now she's doing both Professional Fighters League, which is an MMA promotion on ESPN, and boxing. She's going to alternate between the two.
Oh, and shout out to Rick Ramos, the trainer of McCaskill, who retired. He was an options broker in Chicago. Shout out to him. Not anymore. Like he was retiring to train McCaskill full time, as if he was like he had some blue collar job. The guy's got plenty of money. Like he's a world renowned options broker on the CBOE, right? Like
Oh, like world renowned, really?
I mean,
like in your world,
like if you're looking for options, he's one of the names that comes up. Like if you're looking for an options broker, he's one of the guys.
Like if you're in,
I don't want to say world renowned, industry renowned. Is that better?
Yeah, like if you're in the industry, you know the name.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And
guy's got plenty of money.
That's world renowned. Let's be honest. Like there's boxing people, like boxing champions are world renowned. They're not really world renowned.
Industry renowned is probably a better term.
Also on the card, let's get to it. Austin Williams defeating Dennis Douglas, aka Mama's Boy. I love this fight. I discounted Ammo Williams in this fight, to be quite honest, just because of the level of experience comparative to the two. But he really showed up. His offense is legit. His defense is still leaky. That's still going to take time, I think, to fix if it does get fixed. But even if it doesn't, he clearly is talented enough offensively to hang with like top 20 guys probably already. Like I threw out names like I believe like Munguia already for Ammo Williams. Like I think that's a winnable fight for him, to be quite honest. He's going to get the fast track to the top. I will not be surprised to see him face like Triple G, let's say, in 24 months, like 2 years, let's say. Like that's not going to be out of the question because they're going to fast track him because he is that talented. Gary, your thoughts on Emma Williams? I mean, really showing up in here and just dominating Dennis Douglas and beating him up throughout the fight.
You guys know I was concerned about that fight. I was with Eddie Hearn. I thought this may be a bit too much too soon for Ammo, who has not been fighting that long. He had a 3-year amateur career, and then he's had a bunch of first round, second round knockout type of fights where he's just overmatched his opponent. I was like, this is a live opponent who can box, and if Ammo doesn't get him out quick, which I don't think he will, this could be trouble for him when we progress into rounds. And Ammo took care of business. I mean, after the first round on, it was pretty one-sided. Ammo was able to get to the body. He was hitting him at will. He didn't eat as many shots as I thought he was going to. Ammo looked spectacular. Do you want to get into the Anthony Fowler thing? Because that's the fight. I don't know how realistic. Ammo says he can make 154. I don't know how realistic that is.
No, he cannot make 154.
I don't think so either. He says he can. Eddie Hearn told me last year that he could. I can't see that. Unless he's going to cut his leg off.
Dude, and plus he's getting older, and he's clearly like filling out too.
Jacked. Yeah,
he's clearly like getting bigger and like filling out in the weight division. Like no, like I don't. If Fowler moves up to 160, like I'm cool with it. Like whatever. I think he beats up Fowler though.
He destroys Fowler. Like this is the same thing with Josh Hill. Like at a certain point, you just can't. It's not the amateurs. You can't just flick a jab. Throw some punches.
You mean Josh Kelly?
Josh Kelly. Not Josh Kelly. He's good.
I was like, Josh Kelly. I'm like, dude.
That guy's good. Yeah. Josh Kelly. You just flip some jags, move around the ring, and think you're going to keep a killer like that off you for 12 rounds. It's not going to happen. Eventually, and like Anthony Fowler may have success for 3 rounds off of his jab. I don't think he will because I think Ammo's a better boxer than we're giving him credit for, or at least Rob's giving him credit for. But eventually, Ammo Williams breaks him down and destroys him and destroys him. Like, I like Anthony Fowler. He's got good skills, but he's not a killer like Ammo Williams.
No.
Right? Like in an amateur 3-round fight, maybe Fowler wins. In a professional 10-round fight, no, Williams destroys him.
And I was a little bit worried about the cardio of Ammo, but he looked good in the full 8 round, and he threw a lot in this 8 rounds. He was working a lot through, even like when he wasn't throwing, when he was in the clinch with Dennis Duggan, he was constantly like making his size and strength known within the clinch. I was really impressed. I'll be quite honest. This might be the best prospect Eddie Hearn has in the U.S. for sure, at least, right? Like he might be that blue chip that he has up his sleeve that in a couple years' time is a legit champion at 160.
Until he signs Keyshawn Davis, this is his guy.
He didn't sign him?
I don't think Keyshawn Davis is looking to sign anything long term right now with any promoter. But I think eventually, right? Because eventually Eddie Hearn is promoting Canelo fights, right? Do you want to be a star? Fight on Canelo cards. You want to fight on Canelo card? Sign with me, and you'll find every Canelo card. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of Eddie Hearn's pitch to him.
I wonder if there's people like him are waiting to see what happens with Canelo and Eddie post Saunders.
I think so. Yeah.
To see where do we move career wise in this landscape? Because if Canelo in some fashion stays with DAZN and Eddie in long term, which I don't know if I see that happening yet, to be quite honest. It will, I think, have it will continue this sort of shift in the sport that we're seeing, and the sort of dichotomy we're seeing in the sport between all these networks.
You remember Virgil Ortiz had fought on his own card and beat Orozco, which was probably his best win at the time, right?
Yeah.
And the hardcores liked it, but then he fought on the co-main event of Canelo Jacobs, and he blew out Herrera, and everyone was like, "That's the guy right there." But that's what fighting in the co-main event of a Canelo fight does for you. Everyone's watching it, right? And I think that's what Eddie can offer Keyshawn Davis is do you want to be a star? I'll put you in the co-main event of every Canelo fight. But he's got to promote Canelo first. Like
you add the PBC Fox rumored ruptured relationship, and whatever's happening with Canelo, Eddie, and DAZN. If I'm a young fighter right now, not signed, wait a good 6 months, because the sport might shift a lot or might not shift at all. We have no idea, but it seems like there could be a lot of changing of the guard in terms of who's affiliated with who. But digressing, anything else on the card you want to talk about? Raymond Ford, Aaron Perez. That was a draw. Both undefeated fighters, obviously still undefeated fighters.
I didn't see that being a draw. I thought Ford won.
I did too.
But he got off to a bad start. Like Ford looked too eager, right? Like he looked too amped up, and he was getting hit early in the fight. He might have gave around enough early rounds where it works out to be a draw. But once he settled in, I thought Ford showed off his skills, which I think are considerable.
I did not see the was it Soleimani Cisco fight? I did not see that one.
He didn't miss anything. He fought a guy who they found 3 minutes ago who was not in shape.
He didn't miss anything.
But Soleimani is AJ's boy, right?
Is he?
I think so. I think AJ is like his manager or something.
Anthony Joshua?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's why he's fighting on his own card, right?
Yeah, and matching card, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It's just like,
got him.
Why you in Texas? Digressing. Let's get to the Showtime card for PBC. David Benavidez dog walking Ronald Ellis. I mean, Ron Ellis was competitive in spots, but Benavidez lit him up. And there was points where Benavidez gets mean in fights. He'll get to a point where he has you corralled on the ropes and you fire back, and he'll slip all the shots, block all the shots, pair all the shots, whatever he is. He doesn't get hit, and fire back counters in between all of your shots, hitting you the whole time while you don't hit him. And then smiles at you like a fucking demon. It's I fucking love it. I love watching David Benavidez fight. I think he's one of the best offensive fighters in the sport, and I think he's highly underrated defensively.
That's what I want to talk about. Because he's so good offensively, we don't really notice his defense, and he doesn't exactly look like he doesn't fit the bill as a defensive fighter, right? He looks like he's just a big slug who comes after you, but he's actually pretty good defensively. I think that gets ignored. Again, I don't think he beats Canelo, but I think that's where we're heading eventually. And I thought Ronald Ellis would give him difficult. I didn't think Ellis would win. I thought maybe he gets stopped at about the time that I did, but I thought Ellis would do better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he would win rounds that he would move and give him looks, and he really didn't. I mean, not that Ellis was. There's levels, and Ellis is good. Benavidez is the future.
He really is. I mean, guy's what, 24? Like, how old is he still?
I think he's 24.
Hold on. Let me check. He is 24 still. Jesus.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you say about the best fighters under the age of 25, he's still somehow under 25.
God damn, man. And yes, I mean, again, I love watching him fight. He is like the perfect package for me in terms of an athlete, of a boxer, because he does work in ways that are quite elite level in terms of technique. And I think people don't see it. Like the way he pressures people is technically so proficient, and yet people I think just see him as like this lumbering guy walking forward that's hittable. And I don't see that at all. Like Ronald Ellis wasn't really able to land anything of note in this fight.
You know what it is? It's the Ben Roethlisberger effect, right? Like Ben Roethlisberger came into the league and everyone just thought, okay, he's a pocket passer. And then you see the big, fat, slow white guy who's not slow, who kind of runs well. It's like, what is this? That's not, that's not what he's supposed to do. I think people look at Benavidez and they see one thing, right? But he actually fights completely. Like, I mean, he can fight that way. He can walk you down and punch you, but he's also pretty quick and he moves pretty well. Like, it's unexpected.
Like, I guarantee there's a level of his game we haven't seen where he's a counter boxer, where he can be on the back foot, lateral movement. I guarantee he has that in his sleep.
He could do what Jared Hurd tried to do and failed epically at.
Don't remind me. God.
But you look at Benavidez, he's like, okay, he's a guy who should fight like Jared Hurd, right? Just a brute force that comes at you. But he can do that, but there's way more to him than just that.
Like, he has paths to victory in fights with like people like Canelo or Caleb Plant. I don't think people realize that those are actually his paths to victory in some fashion. Like, I think a lot of people envision a fight with him and Canelo as Benavidez being the one pressuring Canelo, right? And Canelo's reverting back to his counterboxing roots in some fashion, right? But I don't know if that's the case. I can totally see a fight where it's Canelo being the one pressing him and Benavidez on the back foot, trying to use his reach, trying to use his height. I can absolutely see that. Even though we haven't seen it really with Benavidez, I can see it in that matchup. Why? Because clearly Benavidez has elite level movement, elite level defense, because we see it when he's pressing people. I think his footwork is highly underrated as well. And Canelo has come into his own as this pressure fighter. So I can totally see Canelo wanting to be the guy to pressure Benavidez, get him off his game in some fashion, and Benavidez have to be the one on the back foot. But anyways, digressing. Benavidez is probably not going to fight Canelo next, obviously, because that's going to be Caleb Plant. All signs point to Caleb Plant for the next Canelo fight after Pelayo Saunders. So what's next for Benavidez here? Because there's not much on the stable with PBC that he hasn't fought already, and it's not a stacked division. What do you see happening here, Gary? Do you see like a Jamal Charlo fight to try and like entice a Canelo? Because the winner of that might be a real commodity for a Canelo pay-per-view. Like, what do you see happening here?
That's an option. If I was Charlo, yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm saying, like, do you want to go up to fight him after what you just saw from him? I wouldn't. Like, oh, he's not my weight class. I'm just stay at 160. Oh, Charlo is big. Like, I've met Charlo. He's on the wall, obviously. Yeah. He's a big guy. Like, he looks like a 168 pounder. How he ever made 154, I have no idea. It's incredible. Like, his brother's a big 154 pounder, and he's noticeably bigger than his brother. I don't know how he ever shrunk down to 54. Yeah, I mean, that's an option. I mean, if he can't get a Triple G fight, which looks like it's not going to happen at 160 because they turned it down twice.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, go to 68 and fight Benavidez. I don't know. I mean,
because Benavidez is Benavidez a bigger or more important fight, or the fight that you want more than like a Demetrius Andrade unification at 160?
I mean, it's a bigger fight. I still think Benavidez is a star, right? Because of his style, because of his natural market. He's a Mexican in the Southwest. Like, I think he's going to be a big And not a star like Canelo, but he's gonna
bigger
he's gonna
draw than
move.
Andrade. A bigger draw than Andrade.
Yeah, bigger draw than Andrade. You know, I don't think the Andrade fights are gonna happen, right? Because Andrade's not a star, and if I'm gonna take a risk, I'll just fight Benavidez because it's an easier fight to make, and it's a bigger fight. You know what I'm saying? I don't.
And you kind of get your name in the sweepstakes for Canelo because you're no longer in the sweepstakes for Canelo because you're at 160.
60, right?
You know, yeah, it's gonna be curious to see what happens with Benavidez because again, he's so young enough. There's not as many options for him as there used to be, and the big fight that is clearly there for him is not next for him. He's not in line for it next, so he has to wait. Team Batman Boxing saying Canelo beats him. I believe he's yet to fight anyone who I think was dangerous, but Benavidez will probably move to 175 and fight Zurdo or Bivol. He looked drained the day before the win. He did look drained, but to be fair, he looked leaner in this fight than any other fight I've seen him in. Like he looked in incredible shape on fight day comparative to the weigh-in the previous day.
Bivol would be. I don't know how the kind of the forces that be in boxing would work together on that. But Bivol would be a fun fight. I would like to see him fight Bivol at either 68 or 75.
Destroys him.
I don't know. I mean, Bivol is good. Like
it's good, but he destroys him. Like Bivol's a small light heavyweight too. Like,
right, so I'm saying he could do it at 68. If he wanted to.
But they shouldn't though, because Benavidez doesn't have a belt right now.
Yeah.
Bivol does, I think, still, unless they got stripped because he hasn't fought in forever. But I think the Gilberto Ramirez fight is what you want soon because he's fighting Bivol next, right? Aren't we getting Gilberto versus Bivol? So just make the winner of that fight versus Benavidez or Benavidez versus Charlo because nothing else is that enticing. Like fighting another like top 10 guy at 168 is not appealing to me at all.
Davis, Darrell, or that would be it's not appealing to me either.
No, like if Carolyn Davis had like got the nod against Anthony Darrell, maybe you make that fight next, but he didn't get the nod. He got kind of like robbed, air quotes. So Benavidez is in a holding pattern. Like he's the odd man out. Like we talk about this a lot, like with Usyk at heavyweight, right? Like sometimes when you're the odd man out, you gotta get creative.
Chris Eubank Jr.
No, please. Dude, Chris Eubank Jr. would get destroyed. Like it would be so bad. Oh no. Anyways, the other fight on the card I want to talk about, I didn't see really anything else other than the Jamonte Clark and Terrell Gausha fight. And Terrell Gausha obviously linking up with Manny Robles. It worked. Second round a TKO. Shout out to Gausha, man. Jesus Christ.
I only saw the main event, so I didn't watch any of the undercard.
Oh, you didn't watch the undercard? Go back and watch the undercard just for this fight because, dude, it's Gausha, right? Like, I've watched him fight live. He's never been entertaining.
The most boring fight in the world.
Dude, he's like Andrade, but worse, right? And he came out here and, like, dude, put pause on Jamonte Clark, man. And Clark's good. Like, Clark's not a bad fighter, too. Like, he had, like, a draw with Sebastian Fedora. Like, and Fedora, I think, it highly of as a prospect. And Gausha, I think, dropped him in the first round and then knocked him out in the second round, dude. Like, beat him up. Like, Manny Robles, like, infused all that pressure fighter style into him, and it worked somehow. I can't believe it. This might be a hot take, but I think Manny Robles, for this matchup or this performance, should get at least a nomination for Trainer of the Year, along with Eddie Reynoso.
Eddie Reynoso is the winner, but you can get nominated.
Dude,
right?
Turning Gausha into a fun power puncher, like no one thought that was possible. Let's be honest. Love Gausha, nice guy.
Yeah, but good skills too.
Yes, he was a good amateur, really good amateur. He just never translated to the pros until now. Definitely one of those cases where like the natural style of that fighter is completely antithetical to the trainer and their style, but it works and it's actually beneficial to the fighter. Really good to see. We want to talk about Serkat Sorgungs VI now, the Rat King himself.
Yes.
Oh my God. I'll say this about the performance. I forget who he fought. I'll be honest. I don't have it up. It doesn't matter. The first round or two, I feel like he just didn't give a fuck about. Like he just clearly like was just walking forward, like eating shots, not throwing that much. But when he turned it on, it did look like the classic vintage Circuit or Rungs VI that was lighting up Roman Gonzalez, that was lighting up Estrada, that even lit up Quadras that didn't get the nod when he should have. I thought he looked really good after those first like fill out rounds. To be quite honest, I know that other people and people I've talked to are not high on his performance here and thought that he was super hittable, and I can understand that because in the first two rounds he was, but after that he turned it on and it was a complete onslaught of offense and punches and barrages from Circus or Rungs VI, and it looked vintage like. Gary, what are your thoughts? 'Cause I know you were a little bit critical of this performance.
I don't. Offensively, he looked as good as he ever did. Offensively, he was that physical force. He looked good again. He didn't look drained at 115 like he did in the last fight. I thought this was good. But the only thing I would say was that like his head movement, his defense does look, and maybe you're right. Maybe it was just a feeling out thing. And he did, once he wanted to hit the switch, he got rid of him immediately. Right. So maybe it was just, a feeling out process, a wake up process. Like, okay, now I'm going to end the fight. And maybe that's the case, but it seemed not to move as much. Again, he was never Pernell Whitaker, right? He was never going to sit there and make you miss, right? Like he'd move his head a little bit, he'd pick off shots with his hand, and that was basically his defense. He seemed to get hit a little bit more than I would have liked, but you're right. As soon as he wanted to get rid of the guy, he got rid of him. So kudos to him. He is still very relevant in this division. He still matches up extremely well with either of those guys. He's 3-1 against Chocolatito and Estrada. 3-1. Now that the trilogy with either Chocolatito or Estrada is going to get pushed back, but I still think it's going to happen. Okay. And if he wins, then he's 4-1 against those two guys, which means he's the best little man of the era. So he's the sleeper. He's 3-1. He's 1-1 against Estrada and 2-0 against Chocolatito. He's a Hall of Famer who still looks good, and he's 1 win away.
Yeah.
Like he's in the driver's seat of being the best little man of his era. Because let's say Chocolatito wins, like which we both think he does. If he splits with Estrada and goes 3-0 against Chocolatito, and no one else beats Chocolatito, he's the best little man.
Dude, I so wish Gonzalez gets a win against him. I pray. I'm such a Roman Gonzalez fan.
Should he fight Josh Franco in the interim?
Rungs VI? No. Ioka.
No?
Ioka. Give me that fight.
Ioka wins that fight.
And then you get a belt.
You do get a belt.
You get a belt. Yernan Cajas has a fight we're going to talk about later on with PBC, so he's having his debut with them. He's off the table.
That'd be a fun fight in which Ring VI wins. It's a good offensive fight that Ring VI eventually stops him.
Too big.
But yeah. Franco would be a fun fight, but you're right. There'd be a regular belt, but
dude, Franco has unfinished business, bro.
I'm assuming he wins that.
Yeah, but like it's like the schedule, it's not gonna line up.
Yeah.
Like Franco has to like hope that he gets like one of these guys after they lose or they're not relevant to some fashion.
Well, there's enough big names at 115 where he can go get a name on Ioka and the other three. Right, there's 4 big names at 115.
He could get Ioka because Ioka.
He just might have to go to Japan to do it. You know what I'm saying? But he can. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But this division, come on. It doesn't matter. Like any of these matchups I'm cool with. Like they're all Hall of Famers to some degree.
Yeah.
And we're just debating and trying to hope and have some finality as to who is the best of this bunch, because right now it's to be determined in some fashion. I think you're gonna have let's imagine all these guys retired right now, Gary. They're like, who's the best? Right? Is it Rungs VI because of what you just said?
He's 3-1 against those two guys, right?
Yeah. But if you add the Quadras fight, he's 3-2 against
3-2 against Quadras, which is true. He lost. He lost after a headbutt and a technical decision in a fight that was just unfolding. But he did lose, right? He lost. That's how the fight ended.
It wasn't early, was it? I thought it was later on.
It was like no. It was like the 9th round, but it was a close fight. It's like the fight was still in the balance where if Rung VI wins the last 3 rounds, he wins the fight.
Absolutely, yes.
It's
Tough, huh?
Chocolatito. I still want to say Chocolatito.
People in the chat, let us know what you think. Like, if everyone retired right now, who's the best guy of this era in this weight division? It's not Inoue. Because he skipped the division, didn't want this work. I think if you poll 10 people, I think a few of them will say Gonzalez, a few of them will say Rungsvi, a few of them will say Estrada, maybe one says Ioka, but that's probably it.
I'm Ioka's biggest fanboy, and I'm not even saying Ioka.
Yeah, you might have Heath Farley in the chat saying Ioka. Fucking Stan. I think right now it's a debate, and that's the best part of it because we know we're gonna get more matchups between all these guys. Like, it's not done yet, and like you said, all these guys seem to still seem to have enough juice in the tank to have some legacy defining fights, some legacy defining matchups and wars, and to have a finality with these top 4 or 5 guys. Anyways, digressing on that. I forgot how we got to that. What were we talking about? Oh, Rungsvet, of course. Any other thoughts on fights this weekend? I didn't see anything else. Were there other fights?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just want to make sure. Let's talk about since we're on fights. Let's talk about the fights coming up this weekend. Then, Gary. How are you doing, man? Are you okay? Your children are fighting, right?
And they're fighting in Fort Worth, right?
Yeah, I know.
I would love to go to this fight. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town for this fight. I would love to go to this fight, but this is tough, right? I know who I think is going to win. And I don't think it's going to be as easy a pick as Matt thinks. I'm going to pick the same guy Matt picks, but just not going to say it out loud.
I'm going to say it out loud. That kind of defeats the purpose, right, Gary?
I'm just saying you
just keep going, Gary. It's okay. It's okay.
Virgil Ortiz is a dynamo offensively. He's fundamentally a lot more complete than Hooker is. What Hooker has is tremendous power, and he's rangy. He throws a lot of punches, and he's rangy. Virgil Ortiz is the future of boxing. He's the future of the 147-pound division. Him and a couple other guys, Ramos and Boots, right? You can see that there's a new group of welterweights that's going to take this to the next generation. And Virgil's one of those guys. He's going to be a world champion, probably in multiple weight classes. He's on the verge of superstardom, and this is the fight that he needs right now. It's a great thing that it's in Texas. I'm really into this fight, and I think you might get a star-making performance. It's kind of like a fight that I feel is kind of tailor-made for Virgil Ortiz because you have a guy in Hooker who's good offensively, but he's aggressive, and he's got leaks in his defense. If you have leaks in his defense against a guy who's as fundamentally sound offensively as Virgil Ortiz, who gives you angles and looks, it could be a bad look. But Hooker's got power, and Hooker's beaten good fighters before.
Who's he beaten that's like Virgil Ortiz, though?
Saucedo.
Wow, man, that's disrespect on Ortiz.
I'm not saying he is Ortiz, but I'm saying Saucedo, Flanagan. I mean,
I'm sorry, Gary. I'm sorry. I'm just trolling you there. Ortiz should have a star-making performance here in some fashion, of course, right? I debate how many eyes are really going to be on this to really make it a star-making performance, but he's clearly going to shine here. Hooker has that style where if he can be in the driver's seat, he can win rounds, right? I don't think he's that much of a power puncher like Gary says, but he can win rounds for sure. The problem is that Ortiz is not going to allow him to be in the driver's seat. Ortiz is one of the most dynamic prospects we have, let's be quite honest. The way he mixes up his shots, the body and the head, is some vintage style stuff. It's some awesome Mexican style boxing, right? If to use the old Tom Loffer selling line. He has amazing power. He seems to have a durable chin. He backs it up with a good solid boxing base. I wouldn't say, he has the Jared Enos level of boxing ability.
No, it's not. It's a different. Yeah, it
is different. It is. But it's not like Hooker can outbox him here. I don't see that happening. I see Ortiz going to basically bully Hooker around, knock him out within 6 rounds. That's how I see it. It's going to be truly one-sided.
I think you're gonna get a little extra motivated Ortiz because coming up, Ortiz used to always call out Hooker, like since he was like 10-0. That was the fight he always won when they were at 140. And Hooker would kind of laugh at him, like, you're a kid. Like, I'm a world champion, you're a kid. Like, just tap the brakes, little youngster, right? And I think Ortiz kind of takes that personally. Like, there was Hooker and Spence who were world champions at the same time. And then, like, Ortiz was like the little brother, like, you're not here yet. You're not one of us. Like, you'll have your day, but it's a long way away.
Mm-hmm.
And now Ortiz is here, right? And I think I think Ortiz is going to have a little extra motivation, like a little brother complex going into this fight. And he's going to look to – there's extra motivation for Ortiz in this fight, where I think he feels that he's been disrespected by both Spence and Hooker in the past.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Also on the card, Pablo Cesar Cano versus Jonathan Navarro. Annabelle Ortiz versus Sinessa Estrada. I really like that fight. Aslanbek Makhmudov versus TBA.
The dreaded
one. Luis Alberto Hernandez versus Alex Martin. Hector Valdez versus Alberto Torres, and Tristan Calcuth, who I know Gary is high on, versus Dustin Long. Gary, any thoughts on that undercard?
The undercard's not great.
I like Estrada. Hey, I love Estrada.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I wish there was, Hector Valdez looked good, and then his last fight when he fought on the Virgil Ortiz card against Daniel Vargas, he won, but he didn't look as good as he did before that. Tristan Calcuth he's 18 years old, or maybe he's 19 now, right? He's a kid. He's still fighting at cruiserweight. They want to bulk.
He's 7-0 already, though. Damn.
They're moving, yeah, but he's a heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? He's 5 years away from being 5 years away. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he's tremendous. Like, and he's just a project. Like, it's like drafting a kid in baseball out of the Dominican Republic who's 16. Like, he has all world talent, but like, that this isn't going to happen tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Tristan Calcuth, for a guy who's 6'4", that does backflips. Like, you can see the athletic ability, the power, but it's a process. I mean, he's still raw, and they could have something here. And I think eventually he will be, a top 10 heavyweight. But that's not today or tomorrow. But he's got a ton of talent.
Agreed. Any other thoughts on this card?
It's a good Texas card. It's a lot of good Texas fighters on the card. It's a good card. No Rincon brothers, though, which is unfortunate.
Also, that's actually kind of a loaded weekend of fights. I forgot it was kind of a loaded weekend of fights. I'm happy now. On ESPN, in Moscow, Russia, the return of the best light heavyweight in the world, Artur Beterbiev versus Adam Denis. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, by the way, for all those people wondering like what time it'll be at. Here in our country, in the U.S., it'd be at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, not ESPN Plus, ESPN. Gary, any thoughts on, the best light heavyweight in the world fighting again? It's been a while.
It's good to see him again. I know things have came up. There's been a pandemic. He's had issues trying to get this fight, but it's finally happening. It's good to see him again. There should be a destruction. It probably won't last long, but it'll be good to see Beterbiev. Beterbiev has won every fight by knockout, right? He's got a 100% knockout ratio.
I believe so. Hold on. Where is it? And Gary, remind me, who filled in for Tanahara on Thursday, right? Isn't it a Thursday card for it was supposed to be?
Yeah, there's in Puerto Rico against Machado.
I can probably look that way fast.
I was heartbroken by that.
Yes, it is 100% knockout ratio, by the way, for Artur Beterbiev. I know you were. That was actually like an intriguing fight, I'll say. Not an amazing fight for Tanahara, to be quite honest, but it was intriguing. It was a name-worthy, right?
World champ.
Yeah, but a lower division.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's the issue, right? Like if we're gonna give Gervonta Davis issues, like come on, bringing guys up,
Well, now Gervonta's going up.
Dude, I still can't believe that, man. Is that like official?
It's not official as far as I know, but it looks that way.
By the way, he's fighting Angel Fierro. By the way, on that card on Thursday on NBC Sports Net.
The chef, is that he related to Guy?
Yes, he is. Yes,
good.
He's his son. Friday on ESPN Plus in Bolton, England, you have a Kareem Garefi versus Lee McGregor card. I have no idea who else is on that card. Just wanted to make note of it. It's on ESPN Plus. If you want to watch it, 2
Yeah,
p.m.
I saw that, and I really didn't know who those dudes were. So I was like,
I know who Lee McGregor is. I've seen him
I
fight.
know the name. Yeah.
But Paul Highland Jr. Sorry, Paul Highland Jr. is on the card. I know who Paul Highland Jr. is. Other than that, don't know anyone else on that card. Also on Saturday, in the UK as well on DAZN. Where's Rob? Where is Rob for this card? Okay, Lawrence fucking baby giraffe legs Okoli. Okay, versus Krzysztof Glowacki.
It's a good fight. I forgot about this fight.
It's a good fight, but Glowacki's gonna starch him. Okay,
You're gonna take Glowacki. I was gonna take Glowacki too, but now you're talking reckless. So I'm gonna take Okoli.
Fucking reckless, dude. Okoli looks like a newborn baby deer. Okay,
I think he does. I think he looked a little bit less like. Did he get a new trainer, or did it just look? I thought he looked less
maybe
like a baby deer in his last fight. I thought he looked good in his last fight. Less like a baby deer.
Who did he fight in his last fight? Let me check. Nokadim.
I'm not saying it's the best fight in the world. I'm just saying the way he looked.
Wow. Yeah, this guy, great stuff here, man.
I'm not saying it was the world's greatest, but I'm saying he looked less. I don't spastic. Is that like I don't like like when a kid grows 7 inches in 8th grade and he kind of doesn't like Owaki looks like that. Like, I think he looked less. Not that he didn't look like that. He looked less like that.
My only concern is that this has obviously been a long layup for Glowacki off of the Briedis knockout, which was controversial, obviously, with the elbow and everything.
Glowacki's going to win this fight, isn't he?
He should, man.
All right, I'm going to go out on the other side and because I think he's not as bad as you're making him out sound to be. Like he's not as good as he's not as good as Rob thinks he is. I don't think he's as bad as you think he is.
He is so bad. God.
Okoli.
Andrew Tabiti versus Lawrence Okoli. Battle of the prospects. Who wins?
Tabiti.
Even though we've seen him fail before. Like we've seen Tabiti at least fight world level competition.
Yeah.
Okoli, I mean, he's 15-0.
Mike Perez. Who else is that cruiserweight?
Dude, he's beat no one, man. Like he's just beat like undefeated like UK guys or European guys that like we've never heard of. That's all. Like he's got his name off of that, man. Like other prospects that have never panned out. Anyways, yeah, Glowacki's gonna knock him out within 10. That's my prediction. Also on this card, Rob's boy Anthony Fowler versus Jorge Fortea. I believe how you pronounce that.
Fowler's on the card. Good. So we can watch Fowler, and then we can compare him to what.
Dude, I'm so happy we get both of Rob's boys on this card because if they both look like trash, you guys have no idea how much me and Gary are going to show him.
Why does he like Okoli so much? Okoli was an Olympian, right?
Yes, he was.
How did he weak year that year for the Olympics?
I can see how he's successful in the Olympics in the amateur style. I can see that. At 3 rounds? Come on. I can see how he just like jabs motherfuckers for 3 rounds.
And then by the time the fight's over, like you figure him out, but it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he wins the first 2 rounds, and then you figure out, but it's too late at that point, maybe.
And like the one thing I would give him is he does have some power. He does have some power in the right hand. I will give him that. But his entire like game around that right hand is, I mean, poor man's Klitschko is disrespectful to someone who's a poor man's Klitschko. Like that's the reality here. Anyways,
Okoli versus Marcellus Wilder.
Oh, I pick Okoli. Stop that. Stop that.
Okay,
I'm not that crazy.
Rob, for our UK versus Italy rivalry, Okoli versus Fabio Turchi. Who you got?
I'll take Okoli because I'd never watched those Italian cards, so I have no idea who those people are.
What's the other cruiserweight that's named from the UK? McCarthy? Is that Turkey lost a split decision to him on
Racaport, right? Richard Racaport?
No. It's like an Irish name.
Chris Billum Smith. Who's also on this card.
Is there a guy named Tommy McCarthy or something like that? Got a bunch of losses.
You mean Tommy Karpency?
No, an English fighter from the UK.
I do not know.
Turkey lost to him. He was the prize jewel of like the Zone Italy match, and then he lost to close fight to I want to say the guy's name was like Tommy McCarthy or Ricky McCarthy or something like that. Didn't really work out.
Oh, he's Irish, not British.
Is he Irish? Okay,
yeah, that's the issue. Yes, sorry. I was just looking at BoxRec for the UK flags, right? But no, he's Irish. Yes, Tommy McCarthy.
Okay.
Yes. Who's ranked number 18 in the world by BoxRec.
Wow, really? Because he beat Turkey. That's why.
Yeah, Turkey is at 21.
Okay. I mean, 21 is just outside the top 20. That's pretty good.
Okay, guys, we're being honest here. Cruiserweight.
Yeah.
It's not the same since Usyk left it and like decimated it, if we're being quite honest. It's okay, guys. It's okay to admit that. But anyways, yeah, Lawrence Okoli. Good luck to him, man. My boy, though, on this card, Joe fucking Cordina is on it, fighting someone I've never heard of named Farouk Korabanov from Belgium, originally from Kyrgyzstan.
Farouk's a cool name, though. So
it is a cool name.
I'll root for that guy.
He has a cool name, but dude, Joe Cordina is like that. He's in that Chris Colbert like level for me, even though he doesn't have the wins like Chris Colbert has.
Okay, stop. I like Medina too. I mean, Cordina. I like Cordina too. Comparing him to Chris Colbert is a little outrageous.
Why?
Because Chris Colbert's an all-world talent and Cordina's good.
What are you basing the all-world talent on? No, follow me here. Like, what are you basing that on? For purely talent level, or like wins, like amateur career, like what is it?
The whole thing, right? The eye test, the exceptional amateur career, the wins he has as a pro, like Chris Colbert.
Like I said at the top, okay. Except for the wins that Colbert has, that's a big caveat, but it's still a caveat, okay, and a truthful one. Cordina's in that level for me. Why? Because of the style, his technique, okay, and a stellar amateur career. So, I mean, if you're like naming like all the checks and all the boxes, right? Cordina just doesn't check one, which is the wins, and that's a legitimate one. Like I can understand like your gripe and saying like, whoa, he doesn't have the wins yet. I get that. Like I get that pushback, but his defensive style is fantastic. I think he is clearly an elite prospect in the division. Okay, I think that cannot be argued with. He has an amazing amateur career that cannot be argued with as well. So all he needs is some big wins. Like that's all that he's missing.
Yes, if he can dispose of veterans and guys like Colbert does, then I'm not. I think he's good, man. I do, but I just think Chris Colbert might be the best young fighter in the world. Like he's on that level. Again, we can't overlook Benavidez, but I like Benavidez has been a world champion.
Not because Shakur's in the division. He's not better than Shakur.
Oh, he beat Shakur Stevenson.
Chris Colbert?
Absolutely. Who's got better wins?
That's not what I'm talking about here.
I'm just saying, like
that's not what I'm talking about here.
And I know, but Colbert
has the better wins than even Shakur Stevenson, of course. Because
let's put that aside. Sure.
I picked Shakur Stevenson against.
I take Chris Colbert.
The great part is like they are like almost mirror images of each other in their style, their pressure, the level of power they have probably relatively is the same. That's an intriguing fight. It's not happening anytime soon.
Which is tragic because they're both about the same age. They're both from the same market. Like they're both exceptionally good. They should fight each other 5 times in their career, like Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. Like just start fighting them now. But because of the political forces that be in boxing, we're not going to get that anytime soon.
That's it for fights coming up this weekend. Hope you guys enjoy those ones. Gary, we don't have that much news to get to be quite honest. So I'm kind of just going to run through all the news topics.
Yeah.
And then we can just like pick and choose what we want to talk about and shit on and riff on. Obviously, Tyson Fury has been out there saying, hey guys, the fight's not happening with AJ. I'm fighting Wilder again. And Bob Arum is on vacation, Cabo San Lucas in Mexico, in some resort. That's a true fact, by the way. That's where this interview was conducted. And he basically said it's all fucking bullshit and it's no big deal while he's sipping Mai Tais. Gary, I mean, any thoughts on this perpetual fucking news cycle of Fury Joshua is on, not on, Bob Arum yelling at people? Like, thoughts, man?
I think there's no news until there's news. I think like this is Fury being bored. If I was Bob Arum and I was on vacation with my wife, presumably, or whoever, and you start asking me business questions, I don't know that I would respond in those words per se, but I would have that kind of sentiment.
Honestly, like the full quotes aren't that aggressive. But I mean, it's still Bob Arum, angry Bob Arum. Also, I forgot to run through the topics. I said that and I didn't even run through it. And Cajas versus Rodriguez is set to open the Showtime card with Enos and Lipinets on April 10th. It would be Urine and Cajas PBC debut, obviously his first fight away from Top Rank. Also, Joseph Diaz, who lost his fight tragically to the scales. You know, it happens, right? His manager, or I say former managers, the Heredia brothers, infamous Heredia brothers, they went and took his car that he either owned or didn't own, depending who you ask, and have sued MTK, which is Joseph Diaz's new managers or management company, for racketeering. That's just fantastic. And there was one other fight this weekend, which I've not seen, which I see a lot of people talking about. Ebony Bridges, who's I think a relatively like internet sensation down in Australia. She picked up a win and fighting Shannon Courtney, who's Rob's favorite. So I hope Ebony wins just to piss off Rob. That's all I gotta say about that one. Gary, any thoughts on any of these news topics?
I think it's the other one that Rob likes is Ebony Bridges.
No, I'm pretty sure Shannon Courtney. He might like both. It's Rob.
Ebony Bridges is the one that he was sending the pictures of.
Well, that's because she fought this weekend, probably.
Okay, so he's a fan of Shannon Courtney?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. UK, man. Shannon Courtney's in the UK.
Okay.
Ebony Bridges in Australia.
Australia, yeah.
The Commonwealth. The colonies.
I don't really know anything about Ebony Bridges other than she's an internet sensation. I
haven't seen her really fight. I can't speak on it. I'll be honest, I've seen Shannon Courtney fight one time.
Yeah. To me, that's a whole lot of nothing. Although Joseph Parker and Jojo Diaz, that's news. That's fun.
Oh my God! I forgot. Thank you for bringing up Joseph Parker again. Yeah, Joseph Parker linked to a meth cartel. Gary, I'm assuming you read into the articles.
There's not really. It's just, I mean, it's like saying that John Gotti is involved with the mafia. It's like, I mean, there's evidence there. It's kind of known and not said.
Wait, Gary, are you? This is the best comparison to use, Gary, because I feel like you used that, like the intent of that, like your tone was like to like absolve Joseph Parker, but the comparison is like a very guilty comparison. I don't think there's any. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I think if you read it, I mean, he's highly involved in certain activities involving meth, and he's done nothing wrong. It's just capitalism. He's providing a product that people want at a price that they agree upon. Joseph Parker's done nothing wrong. I see what you're doing. I took me a second to realize what you're doing there. I agree with that 100%. As long as he's not killing people like Daniel Kinahan. Right. What I mean, dude, I think I said this in the group chat. I think I asked Rob, hey, has Joseph Parker been in Spain with Tyson Fury and Kinahan? I think Rob said like numerous times. And I'm pretty sure I've seen like pictures of them sparring together and training together. So I'm not saying there's a connection, but there might be. You in the chat saying legalize all drugs. Absolutely agree with that one. Absolutely agree with that. Any thoughts on the Joseph Diaz story? This is funny to me, right? Because I bet you they bought him the car
right, as part of their deal, but it was under their name. So he's just driving it. So then when he signed with MTK Global, they're like, well, we're taking our car back. I bet you that's what happened. I don't know what like the
he's saying that he paid it off, right? That's what I believe I read. That he said that he paid out spent like $21,000 on it and paid off the car, right?
Right, but I mean that's who paid it. Like Matt, if I pay off your mortgage, let's say, it's still your house. It doesn't matter who paid it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
My name's on it.
Yeah, your name's on it. It's your car. It's your house. You know what I'm saying? Who paid it is irrelevant, right? Like, but there could be like what's common law where it's if he's been driving the car and it's his car and he's sort of I don't know, but you're not going to get it back without a fight. And I don't even know with a fight if you win. Like I don't know what the common laws are. Like if it's your house and your wife's lived there for 3 years and then you guys split up, you can't just kick her out of the house. Like she's got a right to live in the house because she's been there. And depending on the territory, like in Texas, it's 2 years. It's usually between 2 and 3 years. Like you just can't say you're out in most places. Now, I don't know if that works the same for a car, but I mean, it's a car. He made a lot of money. I'm sure he wants the car. It might just be best to go get a new car, Joseph Diaz. I'm not a car guy, so I don't really care about cars, but I know some people are highly attached to the car, like it's their baby, like they name it like Shelby. Or
a lot of fighters are like that too. I don't get it because it's not a good asset to have. Like I don't like why would he do? Like,
it's not as bad as a boat. A boat's the worst.
I like that PSK saying Fury's cousin is Parker's new head coach. The connections, guys. I'm just saying. Gary, I think that's it for the show, man. Any final thoughts?
I'm not trying to make Joseph Parker out to sound guilty. If that's the way it came across. I don't know Joseph Parker from a hole in the wall. I'm just like, from what I read. I mean,
I don't know what your thoughts about John Gotti are, but like that comparison was wild to say.
I mean,
was John Gotti?
The mafia doesn't exist.
Sure, Gary. And the CIA doesn't exist either. Whoa. That's a good one there, man. Oh shit. Anyways, guys. I will be back tomorrow. Shit, that's right. Tomorrow, I've been interviewed by the Southpaw Podcast on Patreon, talking about the top 10 scandals in boxing history and going over like how I got into the sport, you know, what I think about it, talking a little bit about politics as well. And then on Wednesday, I'm planning to do a show. I might do it earlier because I'll be bored this week. So I might do like tomorrow as well, but I'm debating. Depends. Keep an eye out for our General Strike podcast on our other channel, Trending Now Network, talking politics, history, all that fun stuff. Follow me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all social media platforms. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, all that fun stuff to do. Patreon.com/Trending Now Network and Cash App, Trending Now Network, if you want to support the channel in any financial way. But of course, all content is free, especially during a global pandemic and recession. We're not like those other podcasters that make all content behind a paywall when everyone loses their jobs. That's bullshit. Gary, final thoughts, man.
No. I unfortunately my two children have to fight this week, and I don't know what I'm going to do it myself. I mean, I have to watch it, but you know, I kind of torn.
Gary, the type to like stand up when you're watching sports when you're nervous.
Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah. Like you pace,
like a caged animal. Yeah. Find me all forms of social media, 3D Boxing blog. It is March 14th, 2021. Ivan Calderon is still not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's make that change. Let's get the Iron Boy in the Hall of Fame class 2021. From Texas to the world, thank you and God bless.
Really? That's it? You're forgetting one sign off, Gary.
Yes, make Texas a country again.
Come on, Gary. Come on. You're welcome. Even though I don't agree with it, you're welcome.
I forgot.
I got your back. Okay.
You do.
And like I always say, guys, remember, fuck the police and free Palestine. And unlike Gary, I approve of abolishing all states and governments because I'm a better anarchist. Just joking, Gary. Have a good day. Peace.